Hey, everybody, it's Scott Steen with the winnersandwhiners.com coming to you with today's edition of Today in Sports Betting. Scott, what day is it?
Hump day.
It is Hump Day. Congratulations. You've made it to the middle of the week. It's all downhill from here. I know a lot of our listeners in the U.S. are stuck in the deep freeze. You guys got the deep freeze up there in Long Island, Scott?
It snowed again yesterday.
How cold is it?
It's not single digits, but it's in the low teens, I believe. Low to mid teens.
I would take that, man. We're
I mean, I don't factor in the wind chill and everything, but
yeah, no. It's we're comfortably below zero here, snowing about every other day. So yeah, it's a high of about 5. Loving it, man. I like you. See, I'm an old man. I have to talk about the weather and shit. You don't care. You're like, I'm inside. I'm not going anywhere. Why do I care what the
It mattered to me when I was forced to go outside to classes in Wisconsin.
I'll bet it did.
I mean, those Wisconsin winters used to kill me, but
I bet they didn't cancel a lot of classes at Wisconsin either, did they?
They canceled maybe 2 in my entire 4 years, and It was probably single digits for at least a month straight, almost every year.
Yeah, my daughter was the same way up in Iowa. You know, it's like, well, you're in Iowa. What'd you expect? You guys need to get to class. So
Not fun.
No, not fun at all, my friend. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about college basketball here tonight, Scott. We've got some interesting matchups. A couple of, I think we have just one game with ranked teams, right?
We have one matchup where we have 2 ranked teams against each other, but you have a couple of straggler ranked teams playing against unranked teams.
Well, that's what
I know. I'm just clarifying.
Okay. Speaking of Iowa, it is the 25th ranked Rutgers Scarlet Knights going up against kind of a psychotic team in the Iowa Hawkeyes, Scott. Iowa 7-point favorite. 150 and a hook is your total. Scott, they tell me Luka Garza is the best player in the world. Is that correct?
Well, he hasn't looked like it the last couple of games. I know that they lost to Ohio State at home. I watched a decent amount of that game. Iowa was up 10 in the second half and then fell apart. Then after that, they played at Indiana. Central Revenge game got off to a hot start again and then fell apart in the second half. I believe Luka Garza in that entire game had 2 rebounds against Indiana.
How is that possible?
Not really sure, but he had 2 rebounds. So, yeah, I'd say he wasn't exactly as impactful as they were hoping he would be.
I was going to ask you, as somebody that watches a lot of those games, how does Iowa lose with Luka Garza? What are they doing wrong? But
I think the issue that you have with Garza is the fact that, one, he's just not – it's not really his fault. It's genetics, but he's not the most athletic guy on the court. It's just a matter of he's the kind of guy who you can give it to in the paint, and he'll use some strength, and he has maybe 1 or 2 post moves here or there. But if you trap him, he doesn't exactly have much lateral quickness. So you just torch him on defense and every time in the pick and roll, and then you basically trap him and you dare the Iowa players to shoot from the outside. And when they hit, but it's a pretty streaky shooting team. And when you take Bohannon out of the equation, who is clearly their best shooter, not even close, and you start forcing other guys from Iowa to beat you from the outside, they can do it, but just not as consistently as you probably want them to. And I think that's the main reason why. I just noticed that Iowa's shot selection is not exactly ideal because they act like everyone on the team is Steph, and they're not. So they miss a bunch of three-pointers, and they take a lot of quick shots, which also leads to transition points the other way. So
that's what I was going to ask, because they're a decent shooting team. They shoot about 48% from the field. They shoot about 38.5% from downtown. That's certainly stats you can work with. But is it a matter of just getting too dependent on Garza, and then when Garza doesn't come through, or when they're able to defense him correctly, Iowa's slow to transition to any kind of an inside-out game? Is that kind of what you're seeing?
That's what I'm seeing. I mean, it mostly also comes down to the fact that Iowa can't stop anybody, which is also a problem. Because if your offense is in a little bit of flux and you can't get a stop, that's pretty concerning. But you're going through the line here, Iowa against Ohio State. I'll just read off some stats here. They shot 43.8% from 3, which is, impressive. They got out-rebounded by 7, which I think you'd find a little bit interesting because Garza's on the court.
Right.
They turned the ball over 6 times, and yet they lost the game.
That's brutal.
And it was because they gave up 89 points.
I was gonna say, well, that'll do it. You give up almost 90 in regulation. That's going to cause a problem.
I also noticed Iowa takes a ton of like mid-range floaters and jumpers, and I don't really think they're very good at taking them. But I just think it's mostly a shot selection thing where Iowa feels like they need to double down on the fast pace that they play, even if it leads to maybe not exactly the best quality shots on any given possession. And when you take let's say a mediocre at best shot and you miss, I mean, you're giving up stuff the other way. So when you're going through, the three-pointers have actually been pretty good for Iowa as a whole. When I watch the game, I see them usually go into some type of slump. But when you're looking through the numbers here, they lost to Indiana, only had 11 turnovers, which isn't bad, but they shot 37.3% from the floor. It's just a matter of this team. They rely so heavily on the three that when they're not taking threes, they're just not very good at it.
Yeah, they lost to Indiana twice in this little 5-game funk they've been in, where they've lost 4 or 5. They've failed to cover 5 straight. Meanwhile, Rutgers worked their way back into the top 25, as we alluded to. They've won 4 straight, covered 3 of those 4, failing only against Minnesota their last time out, winning by 4, missing the 5.5. Mm-hmm. Any way not to back the Scarlet Knights here, catching 7 from a team that can't really seem to beat much of anybody.
Well, I think you'd have to be interested, but I think it is also worth mentioning that Iowa has had a couple of tough games in there. I know losing to Indiana twice is not a good look, but they lose to Illinois in a very close game on the road. Illinois, I know that's been a streaky team as well, but still a ranked team, solid team, and lost to Ohio State, who is currently a top 4 team in the country, I believe. So even though probably should have won either of those games or whatever, those games were close. They were against quality teams. So you can also look at the schedule here. But Rutgers, I am impressed with, just based on the fact that this team looked lost about, 4 weeks ago or so.
Yeah, they looked dead in the water. They were their season basically ended when 2020 ended, and
I thought they were done. They lost to Penn State on the road, and I'm thinking, all right, cool, season's over.
Yeah, they lose by Michigan. They lose by Michigan State and Penn State on the road. They lose by 23 to Michigan State, who hadn't beaten anybody at that point.
Yep, and then they end up coming out, beat Indiana, something that Iowa could not do on either occasion, by 4, beat Michigan State by 30, beat Northwestern by 8, and beat Minnesota by 4. My question for you is, how good is that level of competition?
Well, that is, and that's certainly the question. Although
Indiana, you can argue, is on the fence because they beat Iowa twice, so that's the same opponent there. But you're looking at Minnesota, Northwestern, Michigan State. Are any of those wins really that impressive?
No, other than the Indiana win. I mean, Minnesota's a good team. We talked about that. They're the big home and away split team. You play them on the road.
I'm saying Minnesota, you can say, is a good team. They're 5-7 in conference.
Yeah, which is
that sounds like Patino, but yes, it's so. I think Rutgers is also the product of a pretty favorable-ish schedule.
Right. Well, although you look at that, you see this Iowa team that's had 3 games against Indiana and Michigan State. They haven't covered any of them.
Yeah, I'm just talking about lately.
Well, it is lately.
I'm saying looking at the actual opponents that you can compare, not against the spread, just in general. Iowa's had the much tougher schedule over the past 2 weeks. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Have they? I guess you put Illinois and Ohio State in there. Sure, okay.
I mean, Ohio State's a number 4 team in the country. Illinois has been ranked.
Ohio State's not really the number 4 team.
I'm just going according to rankings.
They're the number 4 team right now because they're on a little bit of a hot streak.
I think they got a shot at the Final Four. I really like that Ohio State team. But anyway,
all right.
Either way, for this game, I like the over. For a side and a spread, I just simply think that this game is pretty close. I just don't trust Iowa at all. So I would probably take the points if I had to. I know money has come in on the under.
Right.
I'm not really sure why. I've seen under money in the Iowa game against Michigan State and Ohio State. Indiana as well, but Indiana doesn't like to play that fast. But Iowa's games against Ohio State and Michigan State flew over the total anyway, even though you had a lot of line movement towards the under. I know Rutgers can slow it down and speed it up. I think you agree that Iowa's going to want to speed it up as much as possible. I can't take the under. I gotta lean over there.
Yeah,
Iowa can't stop anybody. It's just like would it
yeah,
shock you if Rutgers came into this game and scored
but
75?
Rutgers doesn't score. I mean, that's the thing. Are they going to get 75? They've hit 75 once since in their last 8 games.
I think it's possible. I don't trust Iowa's defense.
Well, that's the question.
I feel better about taking the over than the under. That's all I'll say.
I hate both sides of this that I need to take. I feel
agree.
like
I'm not touching this game with a 10-foot pole.
I feel like the play for me. I feel like the play is the under. I feel like the play is the under in Rutgers.
Okay, so, we'll see.
But yeah, don't love either side.
I'm not playing, so
no, I'm probably not going to play that one either. There's too many other good games on the board. So, All right, what else we got?
Well, you have pretty much a smorgasbord of just any other matchups between ranked and not ranked teams. You have any games you want to talk about in particular?
Yeah. Any thoughts on the Wisconsin-Nebraska game? I was like putting your feet to the fire with Wisconsin.
I never figure out Wisconsin, but Nebraska's Nebraska, so I probably have to lean Wisconsin, even though this team, not very good. If you look at Wisconsin, I know that this team has been struggling lately, and I don't even mean like Iowa losing to some good teams. I mean, you're losing to the likes. I mean, you lost to Illinois as well. You lost to Penn State on the road. This team hasn't really been that great. I know losing to Ohio State at home also, but that's more excusable because Ohio State's very good. But I just think the markets have been completely mispricing Wisconsin all season long.
Right.
I mean, you look at these numbers here. They're laying 5.5 against Ohio State. Sure, lose the game outright by 12. You ended up beating Maryland on the road. You're laying 3.5 against Penn State on the road, lost by 10. Then you end up getting 2.5 from Illinois on the road, lose by 15. I just think the markets are all over the place with Wisconsin, and I just don't really think the lines are pretty accurate. So, I mean, I'm rooting for Wisconsin, and Nebraska is awful.
Yeah,
don't get me wrong, this team is terrible. But it's one of those spots once again where it really depends because Nebraska only lost to Wisconsin in Wisconsin by 14. So it's not like Wisconsin blew them out by 30 and now the spread looks a little bit, low or anything. It really doesn't. I know money's coming on Nebraska. It wouldn't surprise me to see Nebraska hang around for a half.
Yeah, they were.
I said before this. I said in the beginning of the season, I think Wisconsin's losing in the round of 32. I think this team's very good at basketball, and I don't think Guard's that good of a coach. But I don't think Hoiberg's done much with that team either. So, I guess I'll lean Wisconsin just as a fan, I guess. But hell, I'm not playing that game at all. I don't know how people actually watch Wisconsin and say that's a good team. That's a good team right there. Like, they're not. I don't know what you want me to tell you.
Yeah, they've played some good games, but man, anytime they've had to step up, they haven't been able to.
No, because they're not a very good team, and they were ranked in the top 10.
But they do, for our purposes here, they do a good job of taking care of the dregs for the most part.
They do, but that's also if you compare road to home. I mean, Wisconsin, of course, is a lot more comfortable at the Kohl Center, but Nebraska's just a lost cause. I mean.
Well, they've covered against Penn State on the road, Maryland on the road, Rutgers on the road.
Wait, who covered against Penn State on the road?
Wisconsin.
That was at home.
You're right. That was a back-to-back. Sorry.
Yeah, they covered against Maryland on the road, covered against Rutgers,
right,
and they covered against Michigan State. And that Michigan State win, which was impressive at the time, turns out to not really be that impressive.
Right. Well, like I said, they've done decently against the dregs.
Yeah, but I'm saying if you look at all those numbers, though, all the spreads are in the single digits. I mean, They're covered against spreads that are around 3.5.
Yeah, and no, sort of, but
I'm saying you go through the line here. Michigan State, they were getting 2, which is
there's nobody on that list as bad as Minnesota. I mean, as bad as Nebraska, rather.
No, correct. I'm just saying the difference between covering as a 5-point road favorite as opposed to an 11-point road favorite. Because Wisconsin, they don't really win many games by double digits on the road. I know that Nebraska's a special case because that team's terrible, but I'm just saying Wisconsin doesn't seem like the team that's built to win by margin. You know what I
mean? That is sort of true. Where they're kind of the grinded team where it's not going to put up the big totals. So yeah, when you're putting up 60, 65, it makes those margins a little tougher to get to. So
yeah.
All right. Well, I always like to put your feet to the fire. Makes you talk about Nebraska or Wisconsin weather. So,
Mm-hmm. You have any? Well, I'll put you to the fire. Do you like Ole Miss or Missouri tonight?
well, I've got I've got
A play on it.
yeah, I do. I have a premium on that.
I'd probably lean to Ole Miss just based on the line movement. I know they just beat Tennessee at home. Seems like Ole Miss is another one of those teams that's terrible on the road but really good at home. And it seems like even though Missouri is on a bit of a hot streak, which they have been, I'll give them props for it because beating Alabama and, well, I mean, Kentucky, I guess, doesn't really mean much. But either way, 1-6-7.
No,
It's a good win.
They beat Tennessee on the road.
Yeah, beat Tennessee on the road as well. Good win there. But I don't know. This Ole Miss team, I don't know. I think the line movement kind of speaks for itself. I think that Ole Miss will give them a decent run for their money. I know that it's a little bit tough to talk about, though, because Ole Miss might be having a couple of players out, or at least they're questionable for some undisclosed reasons. So stay tuned for that. But assuming those guys play, I'd probably look to Ole Miss. But once again, depends on the injury report.
No, what are you seeing? I'm seeing like a half point of line movement. I see it open at 1.5. I see it 2 in a couple of places, but 1.5.
That's what I see for the most part. I just find it kind of interesting that money's coming in against Missouri. At least it appears that way early on, even though Missouri has played really well and is now basically a top 10 team in the country. I just find that line movement fascinating.
All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on that one.
I mean, I saw the same line movement in the Missouri game against Auburn, and then Auburn ended up beating them outright. So, I don't know. It just seems like one of those spots where Ole Miss might be, I don't know, putting together a good performance in that one. Then again, I hope Missouri wins because I find Ole Miss extremely boring. They don't exactly play an entertaining style of basketball, but they win games.
Yeah, you got a couple of grinded teams there.
Yeah, I mean, you're used to Ole Miss being the like I remember when they made the tournament with Moody a couple years ago or a while back, and they were just going up and down and up and down. And this year it's like, nope, we're going to slow it to a crawl and pretend that we're Virginia for 40 minutes. And I'm just like, that sounds awful. But sure, I mean, you win games. But looking at the rest of the card, see if there's anything that jumps off. I mentioned this to you before, which is kind of a controversial opinion. Wake Forest minus 1.5 is kind of interesting. I know Wake is 0-6 on the road. However, Boston College only has 6 scholarship players because they got ravaged by COVID. So they have a couple of like scout team players on there and some walk-ons, and they played against NC State, team that screwed me yesterday, but I believe they were down 25 points after the first like 10 minutes of the game. So Boston College, even though you might think, this team might be able to pull something together, you have to remember that they have a bunch of players who probably should never be seeing the court in a D1 setting, and they are forced to play decent minutes because they just don't have the bodies. So I think Wake Forest is probably a play if you're looking at just solely based on injury and COVID news.
They're gonna run out a lineup there with like the team manager and Teen Wolf will be out.
Yeah, you get the team manager out there, and you basically just say, all right, if anyone gets in foul trouble, we're screwed. And that's kind of how that's going to work out. I think you'd agree with that.
Yeah, it's not good. Now these guys.
Wake Forest isn't a good team. Don't get me wrong. The Wake Forest is not a good basketball team. But in this spot, I think you'd agree that 1.5 seems a little bit low when one team is missing about half their players.
Well, and these guys are out for sure because I've got 3 guys questionable for Boston College, and that's it.
I could have sworn that they were out, but I gotta think they're out. I mean, that's why Wake Forest is favored on the road, despite being 0-6 on the road.
Right.
I mean, money has come in on Wake Forest. I'm assuming there has been some news about them not playing, but
you've got Langford and Karnick. They're questionable, and then Ashton Langford's questionable with a knee.
Something to just keep in mind is that injuries and COVID have kind of really hurt Boston College's program over the last. Plus, they weren't a good team anyway. They were last in the ACC before all the COVID stuff anyway.
It's been a weird year when you look at the college basketball schedule. And just a regular night, well, we've canceled 7 or 8 games. No big deal.
Do you like Houston tonight? I know that they ended up beating a non-D1 team in their last game by about 90. But, they lost a pretty pathetic game against East Carolina. You think they just go all out in this one, just pissed off?
What do you got, 11 and a half right now?
Well, it's up to 12 and a half. It's gone up from 10 and a half to around 12 and a half. But I feel like most of that just based on the fact that Houston had one slip-up, and people are just expecting Houston to be motivated and to just beat the crap out of another conference team.
Well, that's because I played them, so I take the complete blame for that.
That's fair.
And I'm not on them tonight, so yeah, I would load up on Houston.
It just seemed like a spot based on line movement as well that people are just going to look at Houston and say, well, this team's still the best team in the conference by far. This team is still probably a Sweet 16 team, maybe an Elite 8 team, and they're just going to be really pissed off. So I feel like it's the motivation aspect where some teams are going through just the conference schedule of we got to play this team and whatever and blah, blah, blah. But no, they lost the games. They just decided, oh, wait a second, we actually have to try in these games again? All right, cool. And it wouldn't surprise me if Houston kills them. But we'll see. I find the Virginia Tech game fascinating.
Well, this is the first game back for a month for South Florida.
Yeah.
They've been off. They decided to take one of those midseason vacations.
They had a month-long scouting of Houston, which is very interesting.
It turns out, and again, I'd have to see the exact numbers on this, but it seems anecdotally to me that teams' first game off the big layoff have not done well.
No.
So I think, getting these guys right up to game speed.
It's a mix of both for me because in addition to South Florida not playing for a while and might be rusty, Houston's not going to overlook anybody anymore. Because East Carolina is a team that they probably just walked into the gym and thought, well, we can take a nap in the second half and just win this game by 15. I'm assuming you agree. I mean, Houston was killing everybody.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they were a fantastic team against the numbers. So, yeah, I don't hate Houston in that spot. I didn't realize South Florida had been off a month. You don't teams like that fly under the radar. You don't really even realize they're not playing until they're back, and you're like, oh yeah, they've been gone. So, yeah, I think that's a good spot for Houston right there.
You have any thoughts on the Virginia game?
How about the Mississippi game? Any thoughts on that? Trying to trick me, huh?
Something like that.
Well, I know you. I know you want me to tell you how much I like this Georgia Tech team.
I was just curious. I think Georgia Tech might be live to win this game, but I was curious if you had any thoughts.
I like this Tech team. It's hard to bet against the team that doesn't give up any points. That's the problem with Virginia. Now they are, they're very good on the road, man. They're a team that doesn't give up a ton of points either at home or on the road. They don't. They had the slip up against Tech. Problem with Virginia, again, you get these low scoring teams. They're not a great cover team. They're a team that's going to win. They're not a team that's going to win the hearts of bettors.
I watched them against Pitt over the weekend. Virginia seems like one of those teams that, of course, plays great defense, which we all know about. Offensively, they kind of just, I'd say, pray that one of their guys gets hot and then just carries the offensive load.
Yeah.
What happened in the last game. But offensively, Virginia's always a mess. At least, I'd say to watch, they're a mess. They win games, but they're not exactly a great offense. Now, I know the year they won the title, they had Kyle Guy, who was still very solid. You had Ty Jerome, who was somehow a first-round pick, who did absolutely nothing. I don't know how he was a first-round pick. And you had DeAndre Hunter, who was a top 10 pick and actually looks like a pretty good NBA player. So it can work on occasion, but you need really special athletes and players to make it work. And I just don't think that Virginia has many special athletes and players this year.
I also think that they've overrated this Virginia defense just a little bit against.
Well, it's a lot of its reputation. I think the same thing. We talked about that yesterday with West Virginia and Texas Tech, and that game went over, and both defenses didn't look very good. Same idea, but I'm just saying it's based on a system where you say, well, Virginia plays slow, but they score. And my argument is, you can say the same thing about Wisconsin. They made it to the championship game not because of the system, but because they had Sam Decker and Kaminsky, who both were first-round picks in the NBA. I think if you have talent, like elite-level talent in college, that'll carry you regardless of what system you play. I just don't think Virginia has that talent this year.
Yeah, I agree. This is a team that, they beat Georgia Tech by 2 last time out.
That was also at home.
And that was, I was gonna say that was a home game for them, and now they go on the road.
It wouldn't surprise me if Georgia Tech wins this game outright.
Yeah, I would have to lean Georgia Tech. I like the over here too, Scott. I like the over at 126.5. I think that's worth a play.
Well, if you're looking at a close game, then you might also get some scramble points in there. So,
True.
Yeah, that makes sense.
True. All right, buddy. Well, there you go. That's a college show. We split it up today, so we're gonna take a look at the NBA here on the other side. Last shot. Anything else get your attention?
Not really. Just looking through the rest of the card, didn't really see much. talk about. There has been a ton of line movement in one game in particular, though. It's a very, very obscure game, but you got Houston Baptist and Abilene Christian. Line total's gone from 141.5 to 146. There's been a ton of line movement there. If you like tailing huge line moves, you can take the over. If you think you missed a lot of value there, then you can lean under. But either way, anytime you see a 4.5-point move on a total, I don't exactly want to go against it.
No, no, that's a Houston Baptist team that's generally thought of as an over machine. So,
Yep.
All right, very good point. All right.
By the way, I forgot to talk about this yesterday. Quick shout out to our favorite college, Mississippi Valley State. They won a game. They beat Alabama State. I forgot to bring that up yesterday.
I saw they were up. I didn't look at the final. I knew they were going to beat the number.
They held on. They won the game.
Very, very good.
I forgot to bring that up yesterday, but they finally got one.
Congratulations to the what are they? The Eagles?
You wish they were the Eagles. No, they're the Delta Devils.
The Delta Devils. That's right. That's right. Congratulations to the Delta Devils. Way to go.
I forgot to bring that up yesterday. But...
Way to go, MVSU. Now everybody will be loading up on them.
Yep.
All right, my friend. Well, that's it. And as always, if you're looking for more information on these games or any other games, don't forget to stop by. Check out winnersandwhiners.com, the number one site in the world for predictive sports analysis. And you know what? We wish you guys nothing but the best today on all of your plays. Hope every one of those tickets in your pocket turns into cash money back at the window. For myself, for Scott Reichel, for all of us over here at Winners and Winers, guys have a great day. Check us out on the other side, and we'll see you next time on Today in Sports Betting. Take care, everybody.